Good afternoon. My name is Don Jakes. I'm the Deputy Information Officer here with the Great Basin National Incident Management Team 2 that's assisting with the management of the August Complex Northeast Zone. And I'll be providing you an overview of what's been taking place here on the August Complex Northeast Zone this afternoon. I do want to start off by sharing with you that the purpose of the afternoon update is really to provide you kind of an update of what's been taking place so far today. Whereas our morning updates is after we've been able to have our crews come in and we have a more detailed update in the mornings. So to begin with, I want to talk a little bit about the map, make sure everybody knows where we're located, kind of an orientation to the map area. So I'll start over to the east. We do have the area of Redding that's kind of off of the map, and down to the southeast, the communities of Paskenta. As you go along here, this is the Highway 36 corridor that's coming along the map, kind of through the middle of the map, and then going over to the community of Fortuna on the west side. If you zoom in a little bit here, some of the other local communities that we have the community of Hayfork, we have the South Fork of the Trinity River that's coming through the map area here. We also have Post Mountain, Wildwood, Platina, and Begum, just to kind of orientate you a little bit better as to what we're looking at and so forth in respects to the fire itself. So today I want to talk a little bit about what's been happening with the weather. We have had cooler temperatures this morning as well as higher humidity, so that's certainly been helping, but we've also had clearer skies. So those clearer skies has certainly, as that sun's been shining down on the vegetation, it's caused some increased activity of the fire today. We haven't had a lot of wind, and so that's been a very good thing, but because of that direct sunlight, the fire has wanted to get up and burn a little bit more hotly in some areas. I'll go ahead and start over kind of on the west side of our zone here. And if you look just in the area that is in the Bear Wallow area, south of Irish Mountain, the fire has been fairly active in this location today. And in fact, in some places it has spotted over the ridge line, and we've had fire crews that have been in there both on the ground as well as with helicopters that's been working on those spots. Because of that activity though, well, first of all, I do want to share that our primary line that we have that continues along this direction here down into the South Fork of the Trinity River, that's looking well, and this will remain our primary line. But some of these other areas where we're hoping to contain it, we'll just have to see after today what those conditions have been. Our contingency line that we have that's a little bit further to the north, fire crews are in there continuing to work with dozers and masticators, as we've been sharing for the past several days, to improve this. And in the event that this primary line doesn't hold, we do have that other line that can contain and hopefully or contain the fire there. If you go back a little bit further to the east, south of Post Mountain, we've had the fire crews working alongside them with the Marines as well, and they've been working directly at the fire's edge, both mopping up some of those hot spots, improving the lines there, as well as creating some additional indirect line, and also doing some burning of vegetation in these areas to kind of clear that of vegetation, so as the main body of the fire reaches there, it really doesn't have any further place to go. If we move a little bit further to the east, coming over kind of into the Begum Creek area, in this area we've been calling kind of the slop over, as it slopped over some of our anticipated primary control lines about 3 to 5 days ago. This area has also been fairly active in the fire behavior today. Although we do have fire crews that have been going along the hand line that was created by hotshot crews and the Marines in this area yesterday, they've been able to bring in dozers as well as masticators, working their way on down towards the Begum Creek area. So again, improving these lines in anticipation, going directly to the fire's edge, hoping that we can be able to, again, control and contain the fire there. A little bit further to the south, fire crews have also been doing a little bit of burning of vegetation here. Our goal is to create some control lines in here that if the fire wants to make a push further, if we get some other strong winds from the southwest, that again, it has that same area that it's going to be able to stop the fire, because the fire has already burned in this area and doesn't have a way to be able to escape and then move further to the northeast. Further to the east along these other lines, they have continued to hold well. We're continuing to patrol those and monitor those, but things are looking really good along our containment line there. So that's kind of an overview for this afternoon as to where the fire has been, what it's been doing today. We would encourage you, if you have further questions, to look at the August Complex NC webpage, as well as look at the 3 national forests that are involved with the August Complex. Those are the Six Rivers, the Shasta Trinity, as well as the Mendocino National Forest Facebook pages. That's your afternoon update, and I appreciate your time today.